Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Szerro, and today we are going to be doing a speed run through the Call of the Mountain spoilers. We're going to look exclusively at each region, we're just going to do them in alphabetical order, and then we'll get into it. So, the first card we have for Bilgewater is going to be an epic. It is Jack the Winner. Jack the Winner is at the start of each turn, going to create a fleeting Sleep with the Fishes. Sleep with the Fishes is essentially a slow speed Mystic Shot to a unit that also goes face. So this is a lot like a card from Shadowverse called Piercing Rune. This card is probably very excellent. The question is Jack the Winner excellent? Jack is probably pretty solid, I think, but he is pretty expensive. He also competes with Gangplank, so we'll have to see. Monkey Business is going for 2 mana at slow speed, going to summon you a Powder Monkey, and then Plunder summon you another Powder Monkey. So it's going to make 2 chump blockers, and it's also going to do 2 burn damage to the enemy Nexus, also triggering Plunder twice. I think there's a chance this card is actually pretty solid, but it's hard to envision the type of deck this is going to go into. So let's move on to the Demacia cards. Demacia did not get many cards. Demacia got For the Fallen. For the Fallen is for 8 mana slow. When you summon an elite, reduce my cost by 1. For each ally that has died this round, you summon a Dauntless Vanguard. So this is like an anti-board wipe. So if you lost 2 units or 3 units, I imagine you're not going to get many more than 3 units off of this card, but it'll bring back 3 Dauntless Vanguards, which is 9 worth of stats. If you're getting that for 6 mana, I guess that's okay. I don't really think this card is very good, though, to be completely honest. But if we're in a board wipe-centric meta, then maybe this card is actually pretty decent. We'll have to see. Screeching Dragon is a 5 mana 4/5 dragon. It's got Fury and it's got Challenger, so it's going to be able to come down, beat things up, and it's going to grow as it beats things up. This card is pretty okay. I think Shyvana, when Shyvana comes out, is going to have some dragon synergy, so I think this is just setting it up. I think it's setting it up. So moving into Freljord, we have Augur of the Old Ones. Augur of the Old Ones, 6 mana 5/5 Overwhelm and Regen. When you play it, if you behold a card, you will give something else Overwhelm and Regen. It's a pretty beefy unit. It's got a lot of stats, and it makes something else pretty beefy too. If you put it on something like a Radiant Guardian or something like a Soul Gorger, that's kind of obnoxious. So I think there's a possibility that this card is pretty decent in certain types of decks, but we'll have to see. It doesn't trigger Behold itself, so we'll have to see. Call of the Wild is a very good card. It's not going to see play for quite a while, but one day we're going to see a critical mass where you're playing enough Yetis, Poros, and Elnuks, and this card is actually going to be drawing you 2 to 3 cards consistently for 3 mana at burst speed, which is great. Faces of the Old Ones is going to ramp you at 2 mana. This is the lowest we have seen this effect for. The thing is, it is quite squishy at 2 health, so I'm not 100% how great this is going to be. I think it's going to be pretty solid at bridging you into your turn 4, turn 5, so we'll have to see with this one. It does die to Avalanche, it does die to Icequake, so it is a little awkward in that sense. We'll have to see. Ice Pillar is a card that you get off of Trundle. Ice Pillar is very good, Trundle is very good. We'll get to those later. Icequake does 3 damage to all enemy units, or to all units rather, not all enemies. Does to all units, and then gives all units -3 HP. So in a way, this card will heal you if it's not killing everything on the enemy board, and your opponent is hitting you for 1 or 2 hits. It'll be reducing each hit by 3, so it'll be essentially healing you in those situations. I think this card is pretty solid. It gives you a critical mass of Avalanche style effects. Trundle is a 5 mana 5/7. He is pretty large. He comes down, he beats something up. Well, he has Overwhelm when he's leveled up. He levels up when you play the Ice Pillar. The Ice Pillar is essentially free because it refunds all the mana when you play it. Ice Pillar gives things Challenger, or gives things the strongest thing vulnerable, so it lets Trundle beat it up. Trundle has Regeneration. He also has Overwhelm once he's leveled up, so he ends up becoming a very good beater. So he's pretty solid. Revitalizing Roar, this card is busted. I imagine this is going to be creating some kind of crazy combos, especially now we saw Aurelion Soul. This card essentially heals you for 10 and makes Aurelion Soul for free. That's very good. I think this card is pretty insane. We'll have to see if it actually comes to fruition, but I think it will at this point. Troll Chant is essentially a big Elixir of Iron. This card, it just doubles the effectiveness of Elixir of Iron in a lot of situations. This card is pretty solid, I think. Decks that are planning on going a little later, that are going to have a little bit of extra mana to play with, are going to be interested in this card, I think. Troll Ravager, 4 mana, 3/5 regen. That's pretty obnoxious, right? Because he only regens when you have Behold, but he does have regen. And so if you curve this card into Trundle, and then you Icequake or Avalanche the board away, it's very difficult for your opponent to actually do anything onto that board, right? It's hard for them to deal with your Troll Ravagers if they're just a board-based deck. You can't single combat them off the board unless you have big enough things, and 3/5 is pretty big, and Trundle is also even bigger, so I think it's pretty decent. Troll Scavenger, 2 mana, 1/3. When you behold something, it becomes a 4/3. It's big. That's about all it is. I don't think this card is that great, but maybe in a behold deck you're interested in this anyway. I don't think so, though. And then Usgar of the Ancients, 8 mana, 7/7 regen challenger. I kind of like this card. It comes down, it beats things up, and it's going to regen and be able to do it again. Unfortunately for Constructed, this is very expensive. I don't think this card will see play, but I think this card in Expedition is actually quite good, and maybe in some Constructed decks could find some kind of home. So keep it in mind for Expedition at the very least. Ionia got a handful of cards. So we have Fey Guardian, 4 mana, 3/3. When you play, you give something elusive. That is, we already play 4 mana, 3/3 with Yordle Grifter. So it's we already know it's a decent body. Giving something elusive, if it's like a relevant enough unit, like a Flower Child, I think that could be kind of helpful. Some decks might be interested in this. I think it also triggers certain support interested effects. I think Taric is one, and the Targon, we'll get to it later, but the Targon 6/6 is also, I think, gets triggered off of Fey Guardian. Flower Child is very much like the other 1/2s that grow that we've seen in the past. I can't remember the card's name off the top of my head, but this guy just gets bigger. And I think the deck that's looking to play the support cards is just going to be looking to play Flower Child because it can get out of control. This into Tyree, for instance, is a very good curve. We'll get to Tyree later. Fuzzy Caretaker. This card supports things well, and it wants to be supported, so maybe it's good for that support deck. It's going to be competing with Fey Guardian as well. And I don't know. It gives. It doesn't grant. If this granted, it'd be insane. I don't know, though. I'm not too convinced on this card. Help Picks you get off of Lulu. Help Picks will give something barrier and or something vulnerable this round. So it'll be just a useful 1 mana spell to affect the board. And then Lulu is going to be a 3 mana 2/3, turns into a 4/3. When she supports something, it becomes a 4/4. And then when she's leveled, when she supports something, it becomes a 5/5. And then at the start of the turn, you get the Help Picks that we were looking at earlier. Her spell is Whimsy, Lulu's Whimsy. Whimsy turns something into a 1/1, and then it silences it. So that's gonna until the end of the turn. So that gives you a lot of really good ways to deal with problematic units, right? Like things with problematic last word effects, or things that are just very big. You can now make them very small in combat and kill them, or you can just make them small, spend a spell on it, and deal with it. I think Lulu's Whimsy is quite powerful. Picks is a 1 mana 0/1 support. Give a supported ally +2/+1. In a super support centric deck, maybe this card can get there, but this card is very weak on its own. So I don't really know. I'd rather be playing Flower Child over Picks, and then maybe there's another 1-drop that you'd rather play over Picks, and then are you really interested in Picks for a third 1-drop? I don't really know. Singular Will. This is like a super Will of Ionia. So if you control a unit in play, you pick an ally, and then you recall all other units. So this is super expensive, but it's a kind of powerful tempo swing. I'm not really sure. This is more expensive than Ruination, and I don't know if it's better than Ruination, to be completely honest. So I'm not sold on this one, but you might get blown out by this, guys. You might get blown out by that card. Squirrel is just the token you get off of Whimsy. Swole Squirrel, on the other hand, is a buffed squirrel. This thing gets bigger every time it strikes. It's not that good, but it's kind of cool. Tasty Feyfolk is actually a pretty decent card. I have played not the Thorny Toad, the 3 mana 3/2 with Toss and Lifesteal. I have played that in control decks, unironically, that aren't interested in the Toss effect. So if I've been interested in playing that, I would be interested in playing Tasty Feyfolk in some decks too, I'm sure. Young Witch. This card is very good. I think is going to be a staple for Ionia moving forward. It's a 1/1. It supports something and makes it stronger. And it's elusive, so it's just kind of going to be a nuisance on the board. I think this card's existence also makes the Shadow Assassin significantly better again moving forward, because it turns it into a 2/2 again. So I think that's pretty relevant. Moving into Noxus. Noxus barely got anything, unfortunately. I'm very sad. Noxus got Apprehend, which is 2 mana to stun something, and then if you have a Darius, you can rally. So that's going to end the game if you have Darius. This is disgusting if you have the Darius deck working out. I don't find the Darius archetype that fun when it comes to Noxus, to be completely honest, so we'll see. I think this card can be quite good, but I don't think it's super exciting. Someone out there is super excited about this card, though. I mean, it's really solid, right? Like, it stuns an enemy. So, like, you can open attack with your Darius. Darius will probably live, and then you can stun something and attack again, which is pretty disgusting. Like, you can play something, then stun something and attack again. Or they can kill your Darius, you can play a Darius, and then Apprehend after you've already open attack with your other Darius. This is solid for the Darius deck. Basilisk Bloodseeker. I think the gouge is its effect. Yeah. So this card is going to do 1 damage to an ally and 1 damage to an enemy 4 times. I'm not entirely sure how this works, if it's going to do 1 damage to the same ally, if he gets a picket, or how it works. That really affects how good this card is. If you can choose where the 1 damage is going, on both triggers, this is very good because you can get a bunch of procs off of your Crimson units, and you can get a lot of face damage. And this also pushes overwhelm damage too, so this is pretty neat. I like this. I don't think it can go Nexus though. I'm not entirely sure. Poro Cannon, this card is busted. I don't know what deck this card is busted for yet. It's going to be the Poro deck, of course. But the Poro deck has not come to fruition quite yet. But the Poro deck, one day, I promise you, will be insane. Poro Cannon seems insane. It just 0 mana, you draw 2 Daring Poros, which is the best Poro in the deck. It's crazy, dude. This is going to be nuts one day, I promise you. Tri-Beam Improbulator. This is a 4 mana thing. Every time you cast a 3-cost spell, the Tri-Beam ramps up. So it's going to do 1 damage to a unit and summon a 1-cost unit. But every time you cast a 3-cost spell, it's going to do 2 damage, then 3 damage, and summon a 2-cost and a 3-cost. And as you do this, it's going to become a quite powerful card. And I think once you hit the threshold of it doing 3 damage, which is only casting 2 3-cost cards, I think at that point the Tri-Beam Improbulator becomes a very solid card. So I think this card can definitely be good in a 3-cost deck if a 3-cost PNZ deck comes to fruition. Shadow Isles. So Shadow Isles has also quite a handful of cards. They got Nocturne, which is their boss monster for this expansion. Nocturne is a 4 mana 5/3, so the Ash stats somewhat similar effect to Ash in the sense that he's also trying to stop your opponent from blocking. So when you play him, he grants something vulnerable, and then he does the Frenzied Skitter, everything gets weaker for your opponent this round. When you level him, he does that every time you play a unit. So you can play 3 units in a turn, give your entire enemy board -3/-0, and then all your stuff has Fearsome, and you just attack in through for lethal. So with that in mind, we have the Nightfall deck, right? So Nightfall is going to, or Doom Beast is a pretty strong Nightfall effect. It's going to heal you. It's going to be drain and gaining, right? It's going to be hitting the enemy nexus, and it's going to be providing a solid unit onto the board. And this unit doesn't need to go to combat to do damage to the enemy nexus, so this is a really solid card. Dusk Rider, this card is trash. 5 mana 2/5. Even if you high rolled, and this card is a 5 mana 10/5, nice. You have a 5 mana 10/5 Fearsome. It's still going to get blocked by your opponent's 3/3 and then killed by a Mystic Shot, or blocked by. It's going to die, dude. This card sucks. Encroaching Shadows, on the other hand, does not necessarily suck. This is actually going to be the linchpin of an ephemeral deck at some point. This card makes everything in your deck ephemeral and then buffs them. So this is going to be your win condition. I think it's going to, not necessarily your win condition, but it's going to be like the oil to make your deck work. It works for elusives as well. People have talked about this card in elusives, and I think where it really works is the Hecarim deck. Unspeakable Horror, this is going to be Nocturne's spell. This card is essentially Vile Feast, but instead of a spider, if you've triggered Nightfall already, you create a random Nightfall card in hand. I think this card is very good. Passage Unearned, this is a sideboard card. This card will basically never see play in the opponent's main deck unless the meta is in a really weird position. But for a sideboard card, this card is insane. At 3 mana, it obliterates all units that were summoned not played this round. So that's off of effects, like spells and by like Rekindler and stuff. It'll obliterate all those things. This can make disgusting tempo swings. Risen Mists, more Mistwraith synergy. I think that's going to be very good. I think the Mistwraith deck just gets there. This is interestingly a burst speed unit. We have very few units with flash in this game. This is essentially flash. I think this is insanely good. I really like where this is going. Two Mistwraiths, Risen Mists on like just before an open attack can make a devastating open attack, especially in a Mistwraith deck. Shroud of Darkness is going to protect something and then give it spell shield, and also +1/+1 for 1 mana burst spell. The next time you summon a unit, it's going to be giving it both those effects. That's really solid. It's going to make it so that your champions, such as Nocturne or Diana, are going to stick when you're trying to go for your OTK turn, or when you're trying to make something crazy happen. You're trying to make a crazy turn happen. Torment, this is just the effect off of Doom Beast. Really good. Stalking Shadows, this card is pretty insane. At 2 mana burst speed, you're essentially drawing 2 cards. Now, keep in mind, the second one is going to be ephemeral, so it will be dying, but that doesn't really matter. For something like a Doom Beast, you get to cast 2 Doom Beasts in the same turn, you're pushing 4 damage. For something like an Elusive, you're going to be drawing 2 Elusives, you're getting your damage in anyway, you don't really care if it dies. This card is really good, it's super efficient at 2 mana. That's the important thing. Drawing 2 cards at 2 mana is nuts. Stygian Onlooker, this is your 1-drop for the Nightfall deck, and because of that, will be an auto-clue in the Nightfall deck, I believe. Very good card. Targon. Alright, so this is the meat and potatoes of this expansion. This is where everything is. So Targon is going to be a support it's gonna have a lot of support synergies. It's gonna have a lot of dragons, and it's got some new things going. It's got the Nightfall mechanic. It's got the Daybreak mechanic. Hopefully, you know what those mechanics already do. So let's get into Arbiter of the Peak. Arbiter of the Peak is going to be the top end of your support and buff focused deck. I think this card is going to be quite solid in that deck. It's similar to, we have other cards like this. We have the Scuttlegeist, and we have the 6/6 Quick Attack from P&Z. I forget its name, but those cards aren't really they don't see that much play, but they were decent at one point. They don't really see much play now, but they were decent at one point. I think this one is better than those ones, so I think this one might get there. Maybe it won't. Aurelian Soul, this is your big boy champion of the set. This guy is huge, and because of that, a lot of people are probably just gonna play him. He's difficult to deal with. He's got Spell Shield. He's got Fury. He's gonna be big. He's gonna beat things up, and then this guy's gonna win the game if he sticks around for a turn or two. Aurelian Souls, the Skies Descend. This is a nuts board clear. It hits all enemies, so it's one-sided. This is probably going to set you up to make an unblockable open attack once you cast this card, which will probably just be lethal if you already have an Aurelian Soul in play. So this card is just going to be your game closer. Bastion is going to be similar to Deny in the sense that it's going to be countering a spell. It's going to be doing it at 3 mana. It's a little bit more interruptible, ironically, because it's at burst speed, but I think it's still going to be good. I think this card is going to be solid. Behold the Infinite. This is just going to invoke you for 2 mana. This is solid. This invoking is good. You draw really good cards when you invoke, so you're just going to want to do this. Blessings of Targon. This is also a Tarek's hero spell. We'll take a look at it later. I think this card is quite good. This is essentially going to be like Standalone, or like the Freljord's version of Standalone, the Take Heart. It's going to be like those, but there's no condition to casting it, so I think that flexibility makes this card really good. Broadback Protector. This card, if you can keep it healthy, if you can keep healing it, this card will be really obnoxious. This card will heal you a lot, and I think healing is really good, especially in critical mass. This card curves really nicely. Well, let me see if we can find it. It curves really nicely into the Resplendent Unicorn, I think its name is. Resplendent Stellacorn, which is going to heal the Broadback Protector and you. So that's a kind of obnoxious healing curve, just keep in mind. This is going to be a Celestial. Now, Celestial cards are the cards that you get off of invoking. There are going to be a lot of Celestial cards. We're not really going to talk about them too much in depth, but keep in mind all the Celestial cards are for the most part going to be very good. This one is going to buff your stuff. It's going to be nuts. The thing about the Celestial cards is you choose them when they're good, so they're all going to be really good. Just keep that in mind for the most part. So again, another Celestial card. Crescent Guardian is going to be kind of like the Demolitionist. No, not Demolitionist. The 3 mana 4/3 Overwhelm. It's much like that, except this gets even bigger. So if that card was able to see play, this card will probably see play. So Crescent Strike stuns things. Celestial card, quite solid. Crushed Egg grants dragon allies +1/+1. So this is like your Poro Snacks for dragons. Quite good, I think. I don't know how great the Poro Snacks for dragons are going to be. I don't know how great the dragons are going to be. The one thing is dragons are expensive, so maybe they're not as interested in crushed eggs. Our Poros are interested in Poro Snacks. Cygnus, this is going to be kind of like an elusive finisher for your Nightfall deck. You can buff up your Diana and make a very strong attacker. One thing to keep in mind, this card is more like a 5-drop than it is a 6-drop, because the Nightfall deck will be finding the 1 mana burst spell that makes a unit cheaper. You can spend spell mana on it. So this card is more like a 5-drop. Diana is pretty nuts, I think. She's 2 mana 2/2 quick attack challenger. Nothing in the game has quick attack and challenger, as far as I know. And that is a lethal set of words. That's all I'll say. And then this levels up pretty easily. It becomes a 3/3. It's just solid. And once it becomes a 3/3, then it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger when you cast spells. So it's really solid. Pale Cascade, really good because Diana's spell as well. This thing Nightfalls to draw you a card, and it also grants an ally, or gives an ally, not grant, +2/+1 for the round. And that's just a solid combat trick, especially since it's drawing you a card. Dragon's Clutch is going to be drawing you 2 different dragons and grants all dragon allies +1/+1. So this is going to be similar to... No, this isn't similar to Crushed Egg. Dragon allies +1. Oh no, I see. You get to choose between the 2. Wait, these 2 cards... They have the same art. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what's going on with these 2. That's weird. Maybe one of these is a token. The Crushed Egg is probably a token off of the Dragon's Crush. Yeah, that's what's happening here. Crushed Egg and Hatched Egg. Okay, that's what's happening here. Yeah, it's hard to tell. Some of these are tokens. Okay, so Dusk Petal Dust, we talked about that. Solid token. Equinox is going to be a solid card you get off the Celestials. Falling Comet, you get off the Celestial cards, off of Invoking, quite good. This card can get out of control. It's got Spell Shield, and if you buff it, it'll be lifestealing you a lot. So there might be like a healing aggro deck at some point or something weird like that. It's just going to be kind of weird. But I think that deck could exist. Fused Firebrand. This guy has Spell Shield, so he's going to be hard to remove. And he's going to be big. There aren't that many things that can cleanly block this guy. And if you buff him out of range, he'll be even more dangerous. I think this card can get kind of out of control. Especially like as a 5-mana 5/5 that grows. That's just pretty good, I think. Gems are good. Gems are outrageous. Gems are truly, truly outrageous. Giddy Sparkeologist. This card is pretty nuts. So when you play it, if you behold a Celestial card, you give an ally +1/+1, and then you also give it Spell Shield. So you make it bigger, then you make it hard to deal with. If you land this on a small thing, nice. You have now a slightly bigger thing that's going to be hard to remove. And if you have a big thing, you have an even bigger thing that's going to be hard to remove. Good card. Gift Giver gives you gems. I think gems are good. I think Gift Giver is good. Grandfather Rummel, 8 mana, 8/4. Overwhelm Spell Shield. This is a bad Tryndamere. When you play it, it grants something +0/+4. Don't play this card. Guiding Touch is a good card. You have 2 mana, burst speed, you draw a card, and you heal an ally or your Nexus for 1. That's really solid. This is super playable. Herald of Dragons, 2 mana, 1/1. Dragon allies cost 1. There isn't a dragon deck yet as far as I can tell, but I think this will be very good in the dragon deck when that deck gets there. Hush. This card silences champions, and you can play multiple of it. This card is good. I don't know exactly where you play it, but this card is good purely because it can silence champions. That's just useful. INVIOLUS Vox, 6 mana, 5/6. When an ally with Fury kills an enemy for the first time each round, create a random dragon in hand. So this is going to be drawing you dragons, which are all quite good. The thing is, this guy himself is kind of expensive at a 6 mana, 5/6. So I don't know. He's just kind of like a beater. That's all he is, a beater that draws you cards. So if you're in a format that can play beaters that draw you cards, this guy is pretty good in that situation. Leona, 4 mana, 3/5. When you play her, she stuns the strongest enemy, and then once she's leveled up, every time you Daybreak, she stuns the strongest enemy. That is pretty sick. This card is awesome. This card can be leveled up on curve as a 4 mana, 4/6. That is big. I like this card a lot. Leona's Morning Light is going to trigger all of your Daybreak effects again, and then it's going to give your stuff +2/+2, turning your Solari Soldiers, which we haven't looked at, into 5/5s for the turn. It turns the Solari Shield Bearers into even bigger things. This card is a nuts finisher. Hylian Soul we talked about already. Diana we talked about. Leona we talked about. Targ we have not talked about. Targ, every time he attacks and supports something, he's going to be giving himself and that supported unit tough, and he's going to copy whatever spell that you cast on Targ last onto that ally as well. So he'll be doubling up your buff effects, and then once he's leveled up, he'll be making whatever he's attacking alongside indestructible. This guy is quite good. I believe he's going to be quite strong. I'm not entirely sure what the deck looks like, but I believe this guy can get out of control if he gets to level up easily. If it might be that Tarek is too hard to level up, and in that situation he might not be great, but I don't think he's actually that difficult to level up. Living Legends is an insane Celestial card. You're going to be picking this sometimes, and it's going to be winning you games sometimes. Lunari Duskbringer, this gives you the Dusk Petal Dust. This card is quite good. Lunari Priestess is going to be invoking you for Nightfall, and that is also quite good because the cards you draw off Invoke are generally quite good. Lunari Shadestalker. This card is also quite good because it's a 2 mana 2/3 elusive. That is a strong elusive. So you're just going to be playing this. You can't really play it on turn 2, but that is fine anyway. Mentor of the Stones. This card supports something really, really well. It grants +2/+2. It itself is very weak, but you're playing it to support something, and then it dies, and then you get gems. And gems are really good because you get to support things. You get to quote-unquote support things an extra time later on. Messenger Sigil. This gives you 5 of the messengers in your deck. The messenger is a 2 mana 2/2 that draws you a card, which is pretty good. I don't know if you actually play the Sigil, but sure. Meteor Shower, Celestial card, quite good because it's flexible removal. Moon Dreamer, this is a 5 mana 3/5. You play it and it invokes. I think this is kind of one of the poorer invoke cards. This is expensive for a weak body, and I think it's just not going to be too great, but maybe it just does a decent job at filling the board. Moonglow is a Celestial card. You're going to be picking this sometimes. I think it's one of the weaker ones to pick. Moon Silver, this card, you're going to be picking this sometimes. I think it's actually pretty solid. Morning Light, we talked about already. Mountain Goat. Unlike the other things that make you gems, this thing has to strike, and because of that, this thing is bad. Mountain Scryer, this is going to be good. This is your Allegiance card. We've seen generally most Allegiance cards are quite good. This one reduces the cost of Celestial cards. As we know, Celestial cards are already quite good. Mountain Sojourners, if you're in the support deck, this card could live the dream of supporting a whole bunch of things. It can make a chain of supports, and in that situation, this card is actually kind of nuts. But if you're not in that situation, this is a 5-mana 2/5, and I think it's quite expensive. I don't know if this card actually sees play in the support deck. Maybe the support deck gets there. Who knows, man? Pale Cascade is excellent. We talked about it already. Poro Fly, we have our Poro of the expansion. It's going to be 1/1 Spell Shield, solid card. Poros are still kind of weak, but one day Poros will get there, and then this card will be nuts. Ravoon Daylight Spear. One thing to note about the Poro is that if you give the Heart of the Fluffed Spell Shield, that's actually nuts. I just want to say that. So Ravoon is a 5-mana 5/5, which is quite solid. It daybreaks and draws you and creates a random daybreak. It doesn't draw you, and then it makes it always daytime. So if he wasn't already good, he's even better. This card is just solid in the daybreak deck. Play this card. Resplendent Stellarcorn we talked about already. Shards of the Mountain fills your hand with gems. I don't know when you want to fill your hand with gems, so I don't know what deck is interested in this, but maybe? Probably not. Solar Flare, I'm not sure. Oh, this is Leona's ability. Solari Priestess, the opposite of the Lunari Priestess. This invokes you a Celestial that costs 4, 5, or 6. So targeted invoke, all the things you invoke off of this are very good. This card is great. Solari Shield Bearer. This card is just good in the Daybreak deck. You're going to play this in the Daybreak deck. It's great. Solari Soldier, same thing. It's great. Play this in the Daybreak deck. This thing is just great. It's a 1-mana 3/3. Spacey Sketcher. You're going to play this in the deck that wants to invoke and that wants the Celestial cards. This is a 1-mana 1/1 chump blocker. That's going to just make you a really solid card. You're going to have to discard something, but it's going to make you a good card. Star Shepherd, if you're in a healing deck, sure, this card might be good. I don't think this card is that great right now. This card reminds me of the Scarred Reaver, which doesn't really see too much play. The Scarred Reaver, but then you have to heal it. I don't really like this card too much. But this is whenever you heal a damaged ally, so it doesn't have to be healing itself. So maybe this is pretty good actually. Star Shaping heals itself, or rather, you heal an ally or a Nexus, or your Nexus for 5, and that's pretty great for 5 mana at burst speed. Because your opponent can attack you, you can heal yourself up for a relatively low cost, and then you find a really good card to play off of the invoke effect. And this card is just kind of flexible. I think this card is good. Startled Stomper, 2 mana, 2/3 Overwhelm, probably not that great, but maybe he's playing a deck that just has enough buffs to make it useful. Sun Guardian, I think this card is actually a pretty solid beater at me with that one. I think this card is going to kill people a lot. Sunblessed Vigor, grant an ally +0/+2 at burst speed. I don't think this is just an expensive Elixir of Iron. This must be a token or something. That doesn't seem too great. Sunburst, I think, is solid removal. It's slow speed, which kind of sucks, but it'll kill most of the threats that you need to deal with, and it'll also silence them, which is very useful. Supernova, insane Celestial card that you can pull. Charger, another Celestial card. We're not going to go over the Celestial cards, but this is another Celestial card. They're great. Golden Sister, excellent Celestial card. Great Beyond, another powerful Celestial card. Immortal Fire, a powerful Celestial card. Infinite Splitter, this is a dragon that you can put in your deck. This is an 8-mana 8/8, which is quite big. It's got Fury, so it's going to get bigger. And then when you play it, you pick 2 enemies, and at the start of every turn, it's going to stun those enemies. So it essentially removes 2 units from the game until this thing is removed from the board. Messenger is a powerful, it's just a solid Celestial. Scourge, Celestial. Got another Celestial. Skies Descend is we talked about this one already. Traveler, one of the better Celestials, I think. You're going to be picking it quite a bit because it lets you find another Celestial. I think these are all Celestials. Tyree is not a Celestial. Okay, Tyree is a 2-mana 2/2. When you attack with it, it's going to support and grant something +0/+2. It's relevant because it's granting the stats. So this is a pretty powerful curve to, like, if you go Flower Child on turn 1 and you attack with Tyree on turn 2, your Flower Child's pretty dangerous. White Flame Protector, this is a 4-mana 4/4 with Fury. Not much to be said here. This is pretty solid in the Dragon deck for the deck that's interested in playing dragons. I don't know what that deck looks like yet. Written in the Stars, another powerful Celestial card. And Zenith Blade is going to be our final card that we're going to be looking at. This is a 3-mana slow spell. You grant an ally +1/+2 and Overwhelm. It's grant, so it's permanent stats, which is super relevant. Then you Daybreak, you draw another Zenith Blade. So what I like about this card is you can play 1 or 2 of it, and if you have Ravhoon in your deck, and you draw a Zenith Blade off of the Ravhoon will let you just free draw your other Zenith Blades, which I think is pretty relevant. So overall, Call of the Mountain looks like a pretty insane set. Super excited to play with the cards. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see a more in-depth review, I will have another one of these reviews coming up on the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys all next time.